Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. Are we going to have evolving ideas for you today? It's a great opportunity for me, and I know that you're going to like it too. Our guests today are they've got a website that is called iknowdino.com, and they have been podcasters since 2015. They've had over 3 million downloads, and their subject matter is talking about dinosaurs. And I think that everybody likes, well, I don't know about everybody, but most people after Jurassic Park, I think a lot of people thought dinosaurs were really cool. And I grew up with them. I thought that they were really cool way before you guys were even born back in the 60s. There were these little things. Anyway, so Sabrina and Garret are with us, and they are the podcasters, of course, of I Know Dino. And I'm so pleased to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We're really happy to be here.
Well, I got to tell you, it's well, first I got to ask you, how did you both grow up loving dinosaurs? And how did it come to be that when Garret asked you to be his lovely wife, that you had a dinosaur themed wedding and all of that? So tell me about you guys.
Go ahead, Garret.
Okay. So, yeah, we both like dinosaurs as kids.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely speak for myself.
We're just
I can speak for you too.
Well, yeah, we're just talking about Land Before Time was really influential for us, in addition to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that was sort of the big movie when we were kids. And it was the kid-friendly one, because later on in our childhood, there was Jurassic Park. But I don't think I saw it for a few years until after it came out, because it was not particularly kid-friendly. Even though it's about dinosaurs, so you think, oh, yeah, dinosaurs, that's a kid thing. But no, Jurassic Park, not really a kid movie.
Oh.
No, I'll never forget the guy that was standing outside the outhouse.
Yeah,
yep, little
and became dinner.
Yeah. Yep. I think that was the lawyer that got eaten, if I remember right.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And then we sort of, had other interests as teenagers as we grew up, but then we rediscovered our love of dinosaurs as adults. We had this point we had met. We were living on the East Coast near the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And we just started going there all the time, the Hall of Dinosaurs, or the 2 halls of dinosaurs, and kind of remember like, oh yeah, dinosaurs are awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we had, but at that point, that's around the time we started the website, I Know Dino, and it started as a way to keep track on our custom map of natural history museums that have dinosaur exhibits, because their goal was like, okay, let's see how many of these we can get to. And yeah, I Know Dino kind of went from that. Well, we had our dinosaur themed wedding. That was, I don't remember exactly how that came about.
Well, it started out because we both love dinosaurs, and we were thinking, okay, what could we do that would be fun and like unique? So our first idea was, okay, rather than having table numbers, we'll put dinosaurs on the table, and they'll be like the scientific names of dinosaurs. So you'll be like at the Saurophaganax table or something, or the Concavenator. That was sort of short-lived.
Too hard. So yeah, they had numbers and the dinosaur names.
Yeah.
Did you have a bunch of people wandering around trying to figure out how to pronounce the table they were supposed to be sitting at?
That's what we were hoping would happen.
Yeah.
But we decided that was, not everyone would find that fun. So we added a number. So it was a number and a dinosaur name for each of the tables.
Right.
And then when we were planning the wedding, we got married at a zoo, and the zoo coordinator, they had their own person, like interface person for the different features you could add to your museum wedding. So for example, you could keep the train running if you paid an operator for the train, so you get around the zoo. Another thing was they had Duncan the dinosaur, which is a guy in a T-Rex suit.
With an animatronic head.
Maybe 15 to 20 feet long. Yeah, it's got the head on the front, and they sort of stand where the legs are, so their legs are sort of camouflaged with the legs. And they asked us, would you be interested in this? We basically only have it at the zoo to talk to kids and
Oh.
explain about conservation and things like that.
For field trips, yeah.
It's never been in a wedding before, but it seems like you guys might be interested in it. And we're like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we are.
So we were Duncan's first wedding.
Yep.
Now, there's a picture on your website. Is that Duncan?
Yep.
That's Duncan.
That is staring at you with his mouth open?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And all the adults love Duncan, but kids under 10 were a little bit afraid of him.
Yeah, it's kind of intense.
Yeah.
They told
He's
us
a
that
big
they,
dude.
yeah. And T-Rex, because it's supposed to be a juvenile T-Rex, it has a pretty harsh, toothy, sharp teeth smile. They actually ended up changing it to upturn its face a little bit to make it look a little smilier, to make it look more friendly.
Yeah.
And I think it helped a little bit, but it's still a T-Rex.
Yeah.
So what? Tell me, each of you, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Mine's Brontosaurus, which
So's mine.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I'm glad that it's back, even though apparently there's some debate, but nothing that's been published. So
You should explain why it's back.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
back.
please do.
Okay, so there was a mix-up when it was first named because it's a Bone Wars dinosaur, which is Marsh and Cope in the late 1800s, 1870s to 1890s, had this extreme rivalry, which it was like backdrop of the Wild West in the US, and they're going around, there's espionage, there's like I think in some cases they were like blowing each other's fossil finds up because they really wanted to be the ones that found the most dinosaurs and named the most dinosaurs. Like it got crazy. So they named a bunch of dinosaurs based on just one bone that later on we figured out in a lot of cases, like actually these dinosaurs are the same, and kind of lumped them back together. And Brontosaurus was one of the dinosaurs that got kind of caught up in this bone war. And because with sauropods, we often talk about they're not the easiest skulls to come by. So it makes it a little bit difficult to identify. You have to go by other bones to identify that this is a different kind of sauropod.
Sauropods are the long-necked dinosaurs.
Oh, yes. Like Littlefoot from Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the Brachiosaurus from Jurassic Park. And so when they first were putting together this Brontosaurus, they didn't have a skull, and it kind of ended up being a mix-up where they put a Camarasaurus skull on. This is one of the first mounted skeletons of Brontosaurus. And so for the longest time, we kind of had this different image of what Brontosaurus looks like with a more boxy head, but now we know it's more of a, I guess, more streamlined.
Yeah, like a Diplodocus head, if you've ever seen Dippy.
Yeah. So it was kind of confusing because only if it was named around, was it like the 1870s, sometime like that. But then in 1902 or 1903, a different paleontologist figured out like, hey, this isn't quite the right configuration of bones. I think that this Brontosaurus is actually the same as this other dinosaur, Apatosaurus. And Apatosaurus was named just a few years earlier. So that's why the name Apatosaurus stuck. And so we kind of knew about this in the early 1900s. But in the meantime, in the museums, especially the first one in the Yale Peabody, I think it was the Yale Peabody, it was labeled as Brontosaurus. And so that's why there was all this confusion for so many years. And people were saying,
so
yes,
millions of people going and seeing this thing labeled Brontosaurus. And
Yeah.
it's this big mount. It's really awe-inspiring. So everyone's using the name.
Right. And so then sometimes you'd have people in the know and be like, well, actually, that's
Technically,
Apatosaurus.
it should be called Apatosaurus.
Yes. But then in 2015, this paleontologist, Emmanuel Schopp, who every time I see him now, I'm like, you brought Brontosaurus back. Thank you. He did this extensive study of a whole bunch of sauropods around the world. He went to like museums around the world to study all their bones and did I think it was like 200 pages, something very long.
Yeah, big
comparison paper. And one of the items in it was that, yes, Brontosaurus is unique enough that we can start calling it Brontosaurus again.
So long story short, it is, for now, considered its own valid genus.
Because like we said, I think there's been talk maybe about whether or not it's accepted, but no one has officially published any scientific papers saying otherwise yet.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, they were around 240 million years ago. Is that right?
That's the first dinosaurs. Brontosaurus was like 155 million years ago, I think. It was late Jurassic over in like Colorado, I believe.
That's amazing that there are still bones and there are things that we can put together from 155 million years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My favorite thing to think about too is just in terms of how long dinosaurs existed. If you think about like Stegosaurus, which is the one with the plates and the tail spikes and everything,
My second favorite.
it's a great one. I loved drawing that one as a kid. But Stegosaurus and T-Rex never met. And actually, like between when Stegosaurus lived and T-Rex lived is actually longer than between us and T-Rex.
Why do you think that they lived so long? I mean, they occupied the planet for 100 million years or more.
Yeah, yeah, they dominated for it was about 180 million years. It's
That long?
really it's
Yeah.
amazing. I think it's sort of like if you with us, we're mammals, right? And we've sort of, as the larger group, been dominating for about 66 million years. And I think it's partly that it's a really large group because dinosaurs are very diverse. There's all sorts of different types of dinosaurs.
Different shapes, sizes, so many weird.
Yeah.
There's some weird ones.
So there wasn't any like one specific type of dinosaur that really was in charge the whole time. It was sort of like different branches of the family tree, but it is amazing. I don't know why or how they managed to hold on for so long.
It's one of those mysteries that I think keeps scientists going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what if somebody doesn't know anything about dinosaurs and you were to say this animal that is alive today is kind of reminiscent of that era and those dinosaurs, what animal would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for sauropods, the long-necked ones, usually we talk about elephants. They're
Even
sort of the
kind
closest.
of, but there are some major differences. Like their feet were very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Or giraffes, maybe?
Could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, that's
Giraffes,
another big one.
it's really interesting because with the sauropods, they have, I don't remember how many neck vertebrae.
They
At
could have
least
like 20.
20, 15 at least. Giraffes have what, 7? They're
They
just
have the
really,
same number as us.
Yes.
They just have really long vertebrae.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. And
That's crazy.
so if a giraffe has to go to a chiropractor, it gets the same treatment that we would get.
Exactly. Yep.
So, and now I also heard that most dinosaurs were kind of bird-like or came from the fowl family.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you're comparing to something like a velociraptor, that's maybe most like I don't know. There's bird in South America called the Seriama, and it's basically a small, maybe like a roadrunner looking thing with a big claw on its foot, and it can like kick snakes to death. And it does a lot of like kicking stuff and eating stuff on the ground. So that would be probably the most similar to a velociraptor.
Oh, I see.
That's alive.
The cassowary too, if you look at
Oh
their
yeah,
feet.
cassowaries.
But yeah, like you were saying, birds are dinosaurs. So in that sense, you could just look at a bird and be like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
but
dinosaur.
but birds came from the specific group of dinosaurs called theropods, which were things like T-Rex and Velociraptor,
Mhm.
and
Well, also therizinosaurs.
yes,
Which are the weird ones because they're theropods with huge claws, but they ate plants.
yes, they're the largest claws of any animal that ever lived.
So, what's it like when you get together with your family at Thanksgiving? Do they understand anything that you say?
Well, at Thanksgiving we talk a lot about the turkey and how it's a dinosaur.
That's true.
So
It's become a tradition.
Because you guys have studied this extensively, haven't you?
yeah,
At this point, yeah, we've read probably hundreds of papers and we've talked to hundreds of paleontologists and yeah.
There's one that did you catch that was in the news, and I didn't read the article. I should have, but one is out there now that is turning heads. A fossil that they found, I think it was in Asia or someplace. That they and did you guys get that story at all?
there've been a few recently of. I think that you just talked about a sauropod that was found in Asia somewhere.
Yes. I'm trying to think. There's the Microraptor with the gut contents. That was a big one.
It's still it was killed. It died so quickly, and then it still had food in its gut.
Yeah, it had a mammal leg in its gut. Foot. Mammal foot. Yeah.
Didn't look like a human, did it?
No. They think it's something that was similar to a possum.
Oh wow. Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So I got to ask you, why weren't any dinosaurs on Noah's Ark? Just kidding.
That's a whole can of worms.
That is a whole can of worms.
I know, because you see, the dinosaurs were first discovered in the 1800s, weren't they?
Well, they were
Primarily.
discovered, I think the first one was technically the 1600s, but we didn't have a word for dinosaurs until the 1800s.
Yeah.
Dinosauria, Sir Richard Owen coined the term, and there were 3 dinosaurs he named at the time. It was Iguanodon, Megalosaurus, and what's the third one?
Hylaeosaurus.
Hylaeosaurus, thank you.
I just have to laugh at some of the people that I know, because, including like my mother, God rest her soul, she believed thoroughly that the Earth was 8,000 years old.
Mm.
And so consequently, when I said, well, how do you explain dinosaurs? And she said, oh, that was put there as a trick by God, just to get us off the scent. But that's not true, is it? You don't have to answer that.
Well, we follow the scientific evidence. So we would say that they're hundreds of millions of years old, or most of them are. Some of them are only 66 million years old.
Really? So which ones are 66 million? Now, is that when the asteroid came down in the Yucatan Peninsula and devastated everything?
Yes.
Yes.
So some of the most famous dinosaurs are the 66 million year old ones.
Triceratops.
T-Rex. What else? Velociraptor. Those were all about 66 million years ago. A lot of the most famous ones are from like Montana, because, that's where the bone wars were happening, and there were a lot of people emphasizing their finds.
The bone wars, I like that.
Yep.
And now, weren't there bogs like in that the animals got stuck in, and they were preserved that way?
Yeah. There's a really cool site in Utah called the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry, and it's full of Allosaurus, which is a pretty big predator. And they don't know why there's like 80% of the bones there are Allosaurus. And they think maybe either it went there to get a drink and it got stuck, and then another Allosaurus smelled that tasty scavengeable meat and it came and it got stuck, and then that just continued. Or maybe the water was poisonous, or maybe it ate like some foul, meat from some other animal, or like, they really don't know. But that's a fun mystery.
Yep.
It is really interesting when you look at the history of our planet that there's so much that we don't know about. As an example, I'm sure you're aware, like 95% of the oceans have yet to be explored. So we don't know what's there yet. And things that have been gone for so long, it takes a detective to put them back together again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
It does. It's very much, I've heard people describe it as, it's almost like you have a 1,000-piece puzzle and you have like 3 pieces and you're trying to figure out what the puzzle looked like.
Now, they did that a lot, didn't they? They would find a couple of pieces and then somebody would create what they thought it would look like based upon that.
Yeah. One of the first dinosaurs named was Iguanodon, and it was just teeth that were pretty big, a couple inches long, not big like a T-Rex tooth, but bigger than, an average tooth you find today.
Bigger than teeth we normally see.
Yeah. And it looked a lot like a giant iguana tooth. So they named it Iguanodon, which means iguana tooth, basically. But they thought it was huge. So when they recreated it, they actually made the sculpture. It's still standing in London today in the 1850s. They made like a 20-foot long iguana, big old iguana, and they said this must be what dinosaurs looked like, because look, they have the same teeth as iguanas. Of course, they were just huge iguanas.
That's amazing. By the way, I want to return to Brontosaurus real quick again. I read when I was a kid, I think it might have been a fantasy, but I read that a brontosaurus, a full-grown brontosaurus, was almost as big as a blue whale.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It was probably longer than a blue whale.
But in weight, it would have weighed less.
Yes. So it might have weighed, a quarter of what a blue whale weighed, or quarter to a half what a blue whale weighed. We usually go by weight when we're talking about biggest, because everyone always wants to know what's the biggest dinosaur. And so we go by weight. Because with length, a lot of the dinosaurs cheat. Like there's these Diplodocus, it could have a tail that's like 50 feet long, and there's another dinosaur that has just an extremely long neck called Mamenchosaurus.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, if you get like you're just stretching out. Does that really count as the biggest? It seems sneaky.
I think so, but I like sauropods.
It would make brontosaurus bigger than a blue whale, potentially.
But now the blue whale has bigger girth, but it's actually longer with its tail and stuff. And but that was a plant eater, right?
Yep. Yeah, they thought they had to eat a ton of plants.
Oh, yeah. Probably just spent its whole time eating.
Yeah, like maybe a literal ton of plants a day.
Do we know what their predators were?
Yeah, there was there are some really big meat eaters from the same places that we have some of the sauropods. Not all the sauropods lived with big meat eaters, but in South America, there's this dinosaur called Carcharodontosaurus, which it was really big. There's also Giganotosaurus that lived around sauropods, and they had the similar body size to a T-Rex, similar ballpark. They had a little bit less powerful teeth, but they were a little bit sharper. So there have been hypotheses that like maybe they ran up and bit a chunk out of the sauropod and then like ran away and waited for it to sort of bleed, like you see some wolves do and things like that.
It's really hard to know though, that kind of behavior. But it could be too that maybe these sauropods, if they reached adult size, they would have been safe. But once you're sick or before you reached that full adult size, you're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, that's another popular hypothesis. Like once they hit full size, nothing.
Well, that's how one of the dinosaurs, Dreadnoughtus, Fear Nothing dinosaur, got its name because it was so big.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about your podcast and everything that you're doing around that and your work and who you are. But I got to ask you, do they know why dinosaurs were so big?
Yeah, one of the coolest things about dinosaurs is the way they breathe. They breathe the same way. We think they breathe the same way. We don't have preserved lungs, but probably the same way that birds breathe now, and it's called unidirectional flow.
Very efficient.
Yeah. Basically what they did was they breathe in, and when they breathe in, they fill not only their lungs, but also all these air sacs. So sometimes they're described like bellows, but you could think of it as like a separate set of lungs that doesn't have any tissue for absorbing the air. It's just sort of like extra air storage. Then when they breathe out, those air sacs squeeze closed. It fills in the lungs, but then most of the air leaves out through the mouth. But they still have that air in the lungs that's been filled from those air sacs. Then when they breathe in, it goes into those air sacs. And so basically, long story short, they're always getting fresh air in their lungs. It's not like us when we breathe out and now our lungs are empty. They can constantly have that air. So that might have been why sauropods could have such long necks, because there have been people who said if they didn't have that unidirectional flow, when they breathed out, it would take so long to breathe in for the next breath, they might, pass out. So that definitely could have helped a lot.
Was it the environment that they were in that allowed them to get so big, or because they're not anywhere near even the largest of like alligators and crocodiles and stuff like that are nowhere near like what they were back then. So it's like, did the Earth fundamentally change its environment at that time?
It did change quite a bit, but by the end, it went through it. Since we were talking about, they were around for 180 million years.
Right.
In the beginning, you had that thing where there was a little bit more oxygen, and so maybe there were some bigger bugs and stuff like that. But by the end, it wasn't that different. And they went through periods of lower oxygen and things like that, and they still maintained their large sizes.
I think it was a little bit warmer too, Earth was.
Yeah, a little bit. But they did have a lot of special adaptations in their bodies, just like birds do now, for lighter bones might have helped a lot. They also had different style of feet that might have helped support their weight better than mammals can. But yeah, it is a mystery why and how they got so huge.
It really is something, and it would be great. Would you guys like to go back like 180 million years and to go visit the real dinosaur, or would that scare the hell out of you? It would me.
I don't know. Maybe if I had like a shark cage type situation.
You're going to be safe and you're going to get back.
Yeah, because we sometimes say, yeah, we're glad. We love dinosaurs, but we're glad that we have the Earth to ourselves at this point without the big non-avian dinosaurs, because, yeah, they're very scary.
Yeah, they would be. And speaking of scary, you started your podcast in 2015. The technology wasn't anywhere near where it is today. Was it a difficult thing to do? Did you have an epiphany one day and said, let's do a podcast?
Something like that. Yeah, actually, yeah. Because Garrett at the time, Garrett started listening to podcasts earlier than me, so you were listening to a bunch, and we were, getting back into dinosaurs, and we had learned that there's a new dinosaur discovered every week. So we're like, well, we want to learn about all these new dinosaurs, and we found that at the time there were no weekly podcasts dedicated to dinosaurs. So we just kind of thought, oh, let's do it. We like dinosaurs. Let's see what we can do here.
They keep telling me that you have to niche down into, and you guys have niched it perfectly, because what you're doing is everything about dinosaurs, and you came in right at the right time at the beginning of the big podcast wave, if you will, because there weren't anywhere near the number of podcasts in 15 as there are today.
Yeah, it's definitely expanded pretty rapidly.
For dinosaurs too, it was pretty good timing because Jurassic World came out like 6 months after we started the podcast.
Yeah, so that worked out really, really nicely. Are you enjoying your podcast? They tell me also, I don't know who they are, but there's something called podcast fade, and that 90% of podcasts start up and then fall away. What's kept you going all this time?
It's our community. We get a lot of really nice messages from our listeners, and we have a Patreon, and if you're part of our Patreon, you can join our Discord server, and people can just talk about dinosaurs like all day, every day, and it's a great escape if you want to. Like, all you want to do is think about dinosaurs for a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm feeling a little less motivated and it's like, oh, I have to edit this thing, or I have to do this or that, I'll go on the Discord server and see what people are talking about and just being pumped about dinosaurs, so that it gets me motivated.
Okay, I've got to ask, what is a Discord server?
It's basically a chat room, I would say. So similar to any of the old
like Slack
chat rooms.
kind of.
Oh yeah, I was going way old school.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking like AIM and IRC and things like that. But yeah, also Slack in modern times.
We use Slack so that we can communicate, so that they can talk to me and they don't have to talk to me, kind of thing.
Yep, it's exactly like that. So yeah, it's just a place you can set them up for anything. And the way we use it is there's a Patreon integration where it automatically, if you're on our Patreon, you can put in your handle and then it'll let you into the Discord server. So yeah, it's great. It automatically filters out anybody who's going to give you a hard time, because they have to subscribe and give you a little money, and no one wants to give you money to yell at you. So
I'm going to give him $20 so I can give him a piece of my mind.
Yeah, exactly. So it stays positive.
Well, that's really cool, and congratulations, by the way, because it is quite a feat to be able to monetize what you're doing and be able to make a little bit of money doing it, and stuff like that, and to do something that you truly love to do, which is really your passion. Or you wouldn't have gotten married in a zoo. I can only imagine what your grandmother's. I don't know why they're doing this, but it's like,
my mom said something like, "You haven't had a dinosaur party since you were 6."
We've had more.
But there are dinosaur parks all over the world now where you can go, and there are electronics and mechanics where you can. My 4-year-old niece. No, excuse me, my granddaughter. Geez, they live in England, and there's a dinosaur park there where she loves to go, because apparently for children, dinosaurs. Why do you think for children? Why are dinosaurs so? Is it because of the happy face that they think they are, and they're not looking at the real thing? But the kids love dinosaurs.
Yeah, there's a few interesting theories. The one I like the best is that it's the diversity of them, and they just really get your imagination going. Between the ones with the longest necks of anything that's ever lived, the biggest claws of anything that's ever had claws,
right,
the heaviest thing to ever walk on land, the biggest teeth, all that stuff.
All the built-in armor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it just seems it's almost I sometimes describe them as like Pokemon in that they all have their special traits, and it's fun to just learn about all of them.
Each
also-
one has their own superpower.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's also fun when once you learn to say their names.
Yeah, there's another popular theory that it might be that it's something kids can learn and sort of know more about than their parents. So it's like, oh, I know all about this, and you don't know about it. So look at me.
Oh yeah, so I can just see. As a matter of fact, if you go to their website, which is iknowdino.com, and go to, I believe it's the episode page, because you name each episode with a particular dinosaur that you're going to talk about during that episode. I can't pronounce any of them, have no idea what they would be. So that's got to be fun to put all those shows together and to make it work.
It is. Well, one of them is Brontosaurus, so you know how to say that one.
I do, and Stegosaurus and the Velociraptor and T-Rex, and now I gotta ask you, since you know so much about this stuff, in Jurassic Park, they say that a Velociraptor is as smart as a human, or is very, very smart. Do we know that, or is that some conjecture on their part?
That is mostly conjecture. So there are some dinosaurs that we think were kind of smart, and some that we think were really not smart. I wouldn't say any of them came to even close to the level of human intelligence. I think that's really useful in a movie, though, so you can see why they would make that
Yeah.
It's
decision.
Hollywood. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Hollywood. Well, look on the bright side. They survived for 180 million years. I got serious doubts as to whether or not we're going to make it that far.
180 million years is
It's
very
a
hard
long
to
time,
beat.
yes.
And someday somebody will be digging our bones up and trying to put us together. I wonder what they would make a human look like.
Yeah, when they find just like a few teeth.
Yeah, if they had a few teeth, an artificial leg, or an artificial hip or something like that. So, by the way, we're talking with Sabrina and Garret of iknowdino.com. I just love you. You guys are delightful, by the way.
Thanks.
Thank you. So are you.
Well, thank you. You are very, very professional at what you do, and I'm just glad that you do it. It really is cool, and you can give people a lot of information. Now, I got to ask you though, you just did an episode that you compared the Titanic to a dinosaur. How the hell did that come about?
We started a thing on our Discord server or I guess on our Patreon,
Yeah.
where people could give us two complete or just any unrelated thing, and we would find a way to connect it to dinosaurs.
Going back, it started because we noticed in our conversations that we would, no matter what the topic, we would somehow steer it back to dinosaurs. And so we thought, oh, could we do this with any topic? Let's see.
Yeah.
And it turned into a challenge.
Yeah, so we call it the Dinosaur Connection Challenge. And one of the suggestions was Titanic. And as a kid, along with dinosaurs, Titanic was probably the next thing I was the most interested in. So I really went into the weeds on all the different ways you could connect Titanic to dinosaurs. I think the most interesting story connection that I found was there's this ship called the SS Mount Temple, and it was transporting some dinosaur fossils from the US to England, and on the way it got sunk during World War I by a German merchant raider ship, and actually they scuttled it so that the Germans couldn't get all their cargo. But as a result, in the North Atlantic, there are a bunch of dinosaur bones in these crates about 12,000 feet under the ocean.
Oh my. Somebody someday will find them, and they'll, they found them, right? They just can't bring them up.
They could, so that's the really interesting thing. We basically know where it is because the Germans, when they would sink the boats, took really detailed notes on where it was. So we know almost exactly where this ship is, better than we knew where Titanic is. It's also in almost the same depth of water as Titanic. And we've gotten better since going to Titanic at getting down. We've gone to deeper ships now. So someone could go down and get these bones out. And yeah, I've been talking about it a lot, partly because I want someone to do this really badly. So I think it would be a fascinating, like a documentary on it would just be amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Titanic went down, I believe, April 15th of 1912. Is that correct?
I think, yeah, it was either the 14th or 15th. It was probably the 15th because it was like over midnight. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I'm surprised at myself. I did a book report on the Titanic when I was like 9. So that's, so how did you end up connecting the two?
So that was one. I was trying to figure out how far away from Titanic on the ocean floor are the dinosaur bones of this other boat.
Oh, gotcha.
Also, that boat, not while it was carrying the dinosaur fossils, it actually responded to the distress call of Titanic and tried to get to it. It was one of the ships trying to get to it and save the people in the water. So it has a pretty direct connection to Titanic that way.
Well, I like what you guys are doing because it's kind of like, what is that? The 7 connection, the connection to Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Oh, 6 degrees of separation.
Yes, 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So did somebody come up with that, or did you guys come up with that idea? That's fun.
I think we came up with it. I think the very most, the time where we realized we were doing the most was we went to the zoo with some friends, and like every animal we saw, we were like, oh, dinosaurs do something kind of like this. Animals do. And then after like the 20th animal, they were like, okay, yeah, enough about the dinosaurs.
I imagine that sometimes going to dinner parties is unique for you. So I'm just meeting you, and you're a lovely couple, and I say, so Garret, what do you do for a living? What do you tell people?
I guess I tell them I have a podcast about dinosaurs.
And they, how many people? I just can imagine the response. How many people say, "Oh, Garret, you can't make it that." What do you do for a real job? Do you get anybody that talks to you like that?
Occasionally, but yeah. So I would say I was trained in chemical engineering, and I worked for DuPont for years. But now I do the dinosaur podcast full time.
I'd say that happened earlier, but now more people know what a podcast is.
Yeah, that's
made
true.
It easier.
And most people are aware of the fact that there are full-time podcasters, even if they only know like a couple famous names. It's enough that people are aware that it can be a job.
I think usually though it just leads it to follow-up questions about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
yeah, because you guys know so much about it, but. I got to ask you, is it one of your dreams for Spotify to come call you up and say, Sabrina, we'd like to buy your podcast, and we've got let's see, what do I got in my pocket? Okay, we got $100 million hanging around here. Would you be willing to sell your podcast for $100 million to us, and then continue to do it because without you, there ain't no podcast.
Well, that's the dream, Kevin, right? I don't know who'd want to pay $100 million though for a dinosaur podcast.
Yeah. If we did that, we'd probably open a dozen museums, and we could do all sorts of cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's all about clicks and people, butts in the seats, people listening. And if so, I applaud you. I hope that even if it's not 100 million, it could be 50 million, it could be 25 million, it could be, if it's 7 figures, what the hell? Why not?
That's true.
And you guys are very inventive with what you do. So you keep do you find that as a podcaster that in order to keep fresh, you have to keep reinventing yourself?
Yeah. Definitely. We had one podcaster, because we do a survey every year just to see if people, don't like something about the show or have just good ideas.
Where can we improve? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because we like to improve. We don't mind the constructive criticism. And one of the early feedback we got was basically like, be evolutionary, not revolutionary, like make small changes over time. Don't do anything like drastic, which I think was really good advice. So we've tried like introducing new segments like the Dinosaur Connection Challenge and things like that over time, and getting more listener engagement or involvement with the show. So yeah, we've done stuff like that. But overall, the structure of the show has not changed too much.
The same, yeah.
We do news, we do a dinosaur of the day, we do a fun fact,
interview
and
people.
Often an interview. And that's, just mostly our knowledge has been what's been changing.
Well, which is really good, but I got to ask you, how many paleontologists or geologists are out there that are really entertaining to talk to?
A lot of them.
They have some great stories, especially stories of out in the field getting we're just talking about like a number of people have had some interesting stories involving horses getting fossils out of the field.
Yeah. I think the most recent interview that we did was with a paleontologist who was in Montana, and there were some fossils up on a cliff, and the guy that owned the land said, I don't want a whole bunch of people up there because I'm worried somebody's going to get hurt. So if you can take a very small crew up there and get the fossils out, then you can have them. And it was in an area where you couldn't drive a vehicle in, so he brought in 2 horses and used those to pull out the fossil, and that whole story was just very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say also, like, paleontologists, they're so passionate about what they do, so it's just a lot of fun to talk to them about whatever their most recent thing that they're working on.
Mm-hmm.
You would think they would have to be because they're digging in dirt all day.
Yeah, they can be a pretty rowdy bunch too.
Oh yeah.
Is that when you're out in the field and there's nothing to do but drink and tell stories?
Have you ever met anybody who reminds you of like Indiana Jones or one of those guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is based. We didn't meet that paleontologist, unfortunately.
Well, he passed away a long time ago.
But he's mostly based on a guy named Roy Chapman Andrews.
He's indirectly based, we found out.
Yeah. But yeah. So basically, that guy was super famous. He sort of inspired
he was out
the whole...
in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. He found some of the first dinosaur eggs. He found he and his team found Velociraptor, Oviraptor, the one that's mistakenly at first it's named because they thought that it was stealing eggs, but actually it turned out it was its own eggs. It was protecting.
Just sitting on a nest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also had issues with snakes. There are a lot of he wore the same kind of hat as Indiana Jones. There's a lot of similarity, too many similarities to be purely coincidence.
Yes.
My favorite quote from that movie is snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah.
And so you've met some of these folks and they're so passionate about what they do, and you've learned so much. You guys, it's like you have a degree in what would you call a degree in dinosaurology or whatever it is?
It's usually paleontology, but you can do a lot of them will get undergrad degrees in either biology or geology. For anybody listening who wants to know how to,
there's a lot of different paths to paleontology. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the question of the day. Is there a place on Earth that we haven't explored yet? Perhaps it's an island somewhere that has dinosaurs that have survived the course of time and are still out there we haven't discovered yet.
I could give you the annoying answer and say, like, yeah, probably an island with some birds on it.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Some kind of bird out there we don't know about.
But in terms of non-avian dinosaurs, probably not, just because at this point, I think pre-GPS and like satellite imagery, you could make that case. But now we've got the world pretty well mapped. It's not like you were saying the deepest oceans are the place to find new crazy stuff. You're probably more likely to have some ancient thing that's like a reptilian creature, you know, like an ichthyosaur or something like that in the deepest ocean than you are to find an actual dinosaur on land. Although those birds tend to breathe air.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever thought about incorporating some of the land or some of the structures that are underneath the sea that they're finding now that they have absolutely no idea how they got there?
Oh, I don't know about those.
Yeah, I don't know about those.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of conspiracy theory. and you don't want to go. Oh, we have a listener who's chiming in, going, "Okay, is Loch Ness monster actually a dinosaur? And if it is, what kind?"
If it was real, which I unfortunately don't think it is, it would be a plesiosaur. There were these marine reptiles that had really long necks.
Not a dinosaur, but lived around the same time.
Yeah, and they're also reptiles, so they have a lot in common with dinosaurs. And yeah, so that's what it would be if it was real. But I know they recently did a thing where they took samples from the Loch Ness water and they did this thing. I think they call it like environmental DNA. You can take samples of an area and test the DNA. You'll get like little fragments of DNA for basically everything that lives there. And they couldn't find anything that seemed like a reptile that they couldn't identify.
And it's, why is it that every time they think they have a new picture, it's always blurry?
It's suspicious.
Do they do that just so that they can tease us along and say this is could be, but it's a little blurry.
Yep.
So even today with the cameras and the quality of cameras and with the cameras that are on people's iPhones and stuff, I can't believe that anybody can be hiding from anything anymore because there's
Yeah.
always a camera around.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the Bigfoot and Loch Ness things become harder and harder to justify once every single person has a high definition video camera in their pocket.
Mm.
I saw one just the other day that they had high definition cameras and the picture was still blurry.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's a conspiracy theorist debunker who said that's how it goes. Like no matter how good the camera is, they're always just a little bit too far away. It's always in the blurry part.
Exactly. So it's such a pleasure having you guys here, and I would like to we're going to continue this conversation on KKNW 1150 AM at 4:00, which is just about 20 minutes from now. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to tell my audience anything about you, your podcast, what you're doing, so that we can plug in together, and my folks can go check out your stuff and that kind of thing.
Thanks. I think our biggest news right now is that we're celebrating 8 years of the podcast. Eight's a lucky number, and
By the
so
way, that's a huge deal. That's a huge
thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of posts highlighting past episodes on our social media. We're also, I showed you earlier, but I'll pull it up again. For our patrons at the Triceratops level, we made a patch, a Styracosaurus. It says Dino It All. If you can, it's kind of meant to be a little bit hidden because we call ourselves Dino It Alls in our community. So people who join at the Triceratops level above will get a patch if you join by the end of this month, and that's Patreon. We're at patreon.com/IKnowDino, and I think that's probably our biggest thing right now.
Yeah, for sure. Other than just we still make the podcast every week. So if you want to learn about dinosaurs.
So which one of you came up with the name I Know Dino?
Oh, that was Garret.
Brilliant. That's simply brilliant. Because it's easy to remember, it's quick, it's fast, and it kind of reminds me of Positive Talk Radio. But see, I started out with my Independence Report, and that was too long. And even though I did 500 episodes after that, it was still too long, and people thought it was maybe more political than it really is. I don't like doing that, but but I Know Dino, it just rolls right off the tongue.
Thanks. Yeah, that was largely based on, since we started the website first, we tried maybe 50 things and all those URL domains were taken. And then we're like, oh, what can we do? All the things with dinosaur in it are taken. All the things with paleontology are taken. And eventually we got Dino.
Yeah, it's nice. It rhymes.
Yeah.
So in your merchandise store, I haven't looked at it yet. Do you have stuffed animals that are dinosaurs that you can sell?
We don't.
Not yet. I keep looking into it, but we haven't figured out a way to do that. We do like t-shirts and mugs and pillows and stuff like that.
Well, it's hard to do it with that and to have somebody else manage all that for you.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you want to do is to have a bunch of inventory at your house, and then you having to go and mail stuff out, and that would become a full-time job all by itself.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's why we have stayed away from that.
We want to stick to the podcasting side of things.
But there are some cool things that it would be fun to make, just to have for like ourselves, where it's like, ooh, I could really go for a stuffed animal of this new dinosaur that nobody's ever made a stuffed animal of.
Well, you guys are a lot of fun, and I want to thank you for being here. And it's I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to learn more next hour because you're going to be on KKNW, and we're going to talk in depth about some of it. We'll talk again about the wedding and stuff. I still can't believe you did that. What did you have a wedding planner? What did they say?
Yeah, we did.
The wedding planner was at the zoo, so she's fully on board with the dinosaurs. Yeah.
I mean, they helped to, like, when we were like, oh, we want dinosaur centerpieces, they were like, well, we're not just going to do a dinosaur toy. So they made like a flower, and like sort of a little diorama.
That
nice.
wasn't us. That was some family friends who
Oh,
helped
it
us
was?
with that.
Okay,
Yeah, we
yeah.
bought the toys. We bought realistic dinosaur toys, and then
But they made it look like a nice wedding centerpiece. So it all
Yeah.
got like nicely weddinged.
yeah,
Like our cake, we had little dinosaur cake toppers that we got made on Etsy. They were cute little things with the top hat, and the female one had the veil for the head and everything. So
it was a tasteful dinosaur theme.
yeah.
So did you guys spend your honeymoon going from I want to say it museum to museum looking at dinosaurs and stuff?
No, but we've spent a lot of time since then going.
Yeah.
We've been on several road trips to different dinosaur museums. Our most recent one was through the outback of Australia.
Yeah.
My.
Most of our when we do like a big trip for the year, it's usually to dinosaur museums.
Yes.
And if we go on a trip with family, like we might be going on a cruise this winter, and we were already talking about, there's this dinosaur museum that's right by that pier. I bet we could go a couple days early and then go to the museum.
It's a good thing that the two of you that love dinosaurs fell in love with each other, because if it was one of you and somebody else, it would have been hard for somebody who didn't like, oh, we're going to go to another museum. So,
yes.
But it's cool because it kind of keeps you guys together, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we rediscovered our love of dinosaurs together. So it was sort of like where our interests overlapped, and then we've just sort of, nurtured that together.
So if you weren't doing a podcast, what would you be doing with yourself? Would you still be in the chemical business?
I
guess, yeah. I'd be making something.
Something with chemistry.
It could be chemical. I guess it could have been like, I'm interested in all that lab meat stuff. That's kind of fun. You can make those synthetic meats out of plants. I think it's
like the almost meat products and that kind of stuff. They kind of make me nervous because I don't know what's in those things. And it's not meat.
About it. It is safe for human consumption.
in the broad sense of the word, or because I don't know.
But usually.
But you guys are a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation on KKNW 1150 AM, and you can stay here right here on YouTube, and we will be back in about 12 minutes, and we'll continue that discussion. I need to give my guests a break so that they can go, do whatever you do when you have a break, and I don't know. So anyway, you guys are a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to another hour with you. So
great.
So if everybody stays right where you are, if you guys will wait right there, I got to do this, and I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another, because